He was just pumping gas after basketball practice. But 10 minutes later, a deputy had his hand on his gun, and his mother's FBI badge changed everything. The sun was sliding low over Macon, Georgia, leaving streaks of orange light across the gas station parking lot. The air smelled like gasoline and fried chicken from the diner next door. Darius Colton, 17, tall and lean with a gym bag slung over his shoulder, was just trying to grab a bottle of Gatorade before heading home. He had on his high school basketball hoodie, earbuds in, phone tucked into his pocket. The kind of ordinary evening any kid would have. But for reasons he couldn't see, tonight wouldn't stay ordinary for long. As he filled up his mom's silver SUV, a white patrol car rolled into the lot, slow and deliberate. The cruiser's headlights caught Darius's reflection in the glass door of the convenience store. He didn't think much of it. He'd seen police there plenty of times. But this time, the car didn't just park. It stopped. Deputy Wade Hensley, mid-40s with a jaw that always looked locked in suspicion, sat in the driver's seat watching. His hand rested casually near his holster. He saw Darius, saw the hoodie, saw the skin tone, and something in his posture shifted. Darius noticed the car hadn't moved. He tried to shake off the thought, scanning for the clerk inside, but the unease grew heavier. He glanced again. The deputy was still staring. When Darius walked toward the store entrance, the patrol lights flicked on. Blue and red bounced off the glass door. The sudden flash made him stop mid-step. He turned, confused, mouth half open, as the deputy pushed open his door and called out, "Hey, you there, hold up." Darius blinked. Me? Yeah, you. Come here. The words carried the weight of authority, but not the kind that made you feel safe. It was the kind that made your stomach drop, even if you hadn't done a thing wrong. People at the pumps turned to look. The hum of everyday life paused. Darius swallowed hard, his pulse kicking up. He had no idea that the next few minutes would change the way he looked at the world and at the people sworn to protect it. But the deputy wasn't here to ask questions. He was here to make an example. Darius stopped halfway between the SUV and the store, one hand still holding his wallet. The patrol lights washed the ground in flashes of color that made everything feel unreal. He'd never had a cop talk to him like that before. "Sir, is something wrong?" Darius asked, voice calm but cautious. Deputy Wade Hensley stepped closer, his boots crunching the gravel. "Let's see some ID." Darius frowned slightly. "I'm just getting gas." "My mom's car. Did I do something?" Hensley's tone sharpened. "Didn't ask you all that, son." "I said ID. That word, son, hit different. It wasn't said kindly. It wasn't about family. It was about control." Darius's hand trembled slightly as he pulled his wallet from his pocket. He'd been raised to be respectful, especially in moments like this. His mother, Renee Colton, had told him 1,000 times, "Stay calm, keep your hands where they can see them, don't argue." Renee worked long hours at the FBI's Atlanta field office, and she didn't hide the reality of the world from her son. She'd seen things, cases that broke her heart, stories of kids stopped for fitting a description. She made sure Darius understood the difference between staying alive and being right. But still, seeing those red and blue lights now, Darius couldn't stop the sting of humiliation creeping in. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just living. As he handed over his ID, Hensley snatched it faster than necessary, barely glancing at the card. "Where'd you get this vehicle?" Darius blinked. "It's my mom's car, sir." "Your mom, huh?" "Name?" "Renee Colton." The deputy squinted, tapping something into his tablet. "You sure about that?" "Yes, sir." "She's at work." Hensley chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. "At work." "Uh-huh. You live around here?" "Yes, right off Eisenhower Parkway." The deputy's expression tightened. He didn't like being answered directly. He wasn't looking for information. He was looking for hesitation, something to justify his suspicion. Inside the store, the clerk, an older man stocking drinks, froze halfway through emotion. He'd seen this kind of thing before, but never knew what to do. A young couple by the next pump slowed their conversation, watching from behind their windshield. Darius could feel their eyes. The embarrassment burned hotter than fear. He wanted to call his mom, but he knew that could be taken the wrong way. He stood still, breathing slow, trying to remember everything she'd ever told him. Renee always said, "You don't win every battle by fighting back. Sometimes you win by staying steady long enough for the truth to reveal itself. But tonight, that truth was coming faster than either of them could have imagined. Because a few miles away, Renee Colton was just clocking out, unaware her son's name was already echoing through a deputy's radio. The evening air had cooled, but sweat rolled down Darius's temple. He wasn't sure if it was the heat or the pressure. Deputy Hensley circled him slowly, holding his ID like it was evidence. "You said this is your mother's car," Hensley said, glancing at the SUV. "What's she do for a living?" Darius hesitated for half a second. "She works for the government." "What department?" "The Bureau." Hensley raised an eyebrow. "What bureau?" "The FBI, sir." That made the deputy pause, just for a heartbeat, but then he smirked, a kind of disbelief that said he'd already decided what he thought of this kid. "Right. And I'm the president," he muttered. "I'm serious, sir. You can call her. She's—" "Quiet," Hensley snapped, lifting a hand. "You don't get to tell me what I can do, you understand that?" Darius bit his lip and nodded. "Yes, sir." The officer took a slow breath, eyes moving to the SUV again. "Mind if I take a look inside?" Darius blinked. "You need a reason for that, don't you?" Hensley's voice hardened. "Are you refusing a lawful request?" "No, sir. My mom wouldn't want—" "Then open it." Darius reached for the handle, his hands visibly shaking. He opened the driver's door, trying not to make any sudden movements. The deputy leaned in, flashlight scanning the seats, the floor mats, the back seat. There was nothing but a basketball, a backpack, and a few empty water bottles. "What's in the bag?" "My gym stuff, shoes, towel, jersey. Go ahead and open it." He did. The deputy looked through the clothes like he was expecting something else, something to justify the tension already choking the air. But there was nothing. "Where are you coming from?" Hensley asked, stepping back. "Practice. Over at Southwest High." "Who coaches there?" "Coached at Derby." The deputy nodded slowly, pretending to take notes, though his notepad stayed blank. "You play starter?" "Yes, sir." Hensley circled back toward the front of the SUV. His voice dropped lower. "You know, I've been on this job 20 years. Seen a lot of kids tell me a lot of stories. I'm not lying, sir." The deputy's eyes met his, sharp and unyielding. "You sure about that?" For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady beep of another car finishing its fill-up. Inside, Darius's chest tightened. Every word, every breath, felt like a test he couldn't pass. From across the lot, the store clerk finally stepped outside, wiping his hands on his apron. "Officer, everything okay?" he called out, voice cautious. Hensley didn't even turn. "Mind your business, sir. Police matter." The man nodded, retreating back toward the door. Darius felt more alone than ever. Then the deputy's radio crackled. A faint voice came through, asking for his location. Hensley stepped away to respond. Darius took a shaky breath, his eyes darting toward the SUV. His phone was on the seat, screen lighting up with a missed call. His mother. He glanced at the deputy, still talking into the radio. Then he looked at the phone again. One quick move. That's all it would take to answer. But something deep inside told him not to. Because one wrong move tonight could turn a misunderstanding into something irreversible. The air around the gas station grew heavier, like everyone was holding their breath. The blue and red lights still flickered against the windows of the store, and people had started pretending not to look, even though everyone was watching. Deputy Wade Hensley was pacing now. Whatever patience he'd started with was gone. "You sure this is your car?" he asked again. Darius nodded. "Yes, sir." "My mom's." "I told you funny thing," Hensley said, staring at the license plate. "This vehicle was reported missing last month." "What? That's not possible. Keep your hands where I can see them." Darius froze, palms out. "Sir, I swear that's not true. My mom drives this car every day. You calling me a liar?" "No, sir, Then stop talking." Hensley's voice was loud now, loud enough for the people inside the store to stop what they were doing completely. The older clerk leaned forward, squinting through the glass. A young woman by pump 3 pulled out her phone, recording. Darius's heart hammered. His breathing felt too fast, too shallow. He tried again. "Can I please call my mom?" "She can clear this up in a second. Hands where I can see them." "They are." The deputy stepped closer, hand resting on the holster of his gun. "One more word, and I'm detaining you." You understand me? Darius didn't move, didn't blink. Every cell in his body screamed to run, but his mother's words echoed louder. Never make them nervous. Never make them think you're resisting. The recording woman whispered, "He's just a kid," as she kept her phone up. Inside the SUV, Darius's phone buzzed again. Another call from Mom. The sound made Hensley turn his head sharply. "Who's calling you?" "My mother," Darius said softly. "Get it." "What?" "I said get it." Darius hesitated. His hand twitched toward the car door. Hensley's voice snapped again. "Slowly!" He opened the door, inch by inch, reached for the phone, and held it up. "Put it on speaker." He did. The call connected mid-ring. "Darius? You good, baby?" Renee's voice came through, calm but warm. "Ma," he said quietly, "I'm at the Chevron off Gray Highway. There's a cop here saying the car's—" Hensley cut in, leaning toward the phone. "Ma'am, this is Deputy Wade Hensley with the Bibb County Sheriff's Office. We've got your son here in a suspicious vehicle." There was a pause on the line, then her tone changed. Lower, sharper. "Excuse me?" "Vehicle came back flagged," he continued, "and your son's acting nervous." "Because you're harassing him," she shot back. "Put him on again." The deputy smirked. "Ma'am, I'm handling it. You can come down if you want, but he's not going anywhere till I verify a few things." Silence. A kind that made even Hensley glance at the phone, uncertain. Then Renee said quietly, "I'll be there in 7 minutes." The line went dead. Darius looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Hensley stuffed the ID back into his vest. "Fine. We'll wait." He didn't know what was about to walk into that parking lot, or how fast the balance of power was about to flip. But in 7 minutes, the deputy's badge wouldn't be the only one shining under those gas station lights. The gas station had gone quiet again, like everyone was waiting for something. The red and blue lights still pulsed against the store windows, stretching shadows across the pavement. Darius stood by the SUV, hands stiff at his sides, eyes locked on the deputy who'd refused to believe a word he said. Hensley leaned against the hood of his patrol car, pretending to scroll through his tablet, though he hadn't typed anything for minutes. His jaw flexed every few seconds, a sign he was waiting, almost enjoying it. Then, a black sedan pulled into the lot. Smooth, unhurried, no lights, no music, just presence. The car parked at the edge of the pumps, and Renee Colton stepped out, still in her dark suit from work. Her badge glinted briefly as the overhead lights caught it. Her expression was calm, but there was no mistaking the intensity in her eyes. She walked straight toward the patrol car. "Evening," she said, voice steady. "I'm looking for my son, Darius Colton." Hensley pushed off the hood, his tone immediately shifting to something more official. "Ma'am, I was just verifying." "That's him." She pointed toward Darius without looking away from the officer. "You said the car was stolen?" Hensley hesitated. "It came up flagged in our system." "Flagged when?" "I'll have to double-check the timestamp." Renee folded her arms. "You're looking at the registered owner of that vehicle. I'm Special Agent Renee Colton, FBI, badge number 2475-D. You can confirm with your dispatch." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. Each word landed clean and deliberate. The deputy blinked, trying to process what she'd just said. "FBI?" "Yes," she said, reaching into her jacket and flashing her credentials. "And I'd like to know why my minor son was detained, questioned, and intimidated while filling up his mother's car." Darius exhaled slowly, the first real breath he'd taken in what felt like hours. Hensley's confidence faltered. "Ma'am, it was a routine check." "No, it wasn't," Renee interrupted. "Routine checks don't involve shouting at kids with their hands up." The woman recording whispered, "She's FBI," and you could hear the disbelief in her tone. Renee took a step closer. "Did you have probable cause?" The deputy opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Body cam on?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good," she said. "Then you won't mind letting me see that footage after we're done here." He shifted, suddenly unsure where to rest his hands. "That's not standard procedure." "I didn't ask for procedure," she replied calmly. "I asked if you'd mind." Her tone wasn't loud. It was measured, but even the people inside the store could feel the difference. Darius finally spoke, his voice small. "Mom, he said the car was reported stolen." Renee turned to him. "It wasn't." I just drove it this morning. Deputy, when was the last time your database was updated? I don't have that info in front of me. She nodded slowly. That's what I thought. For the first time that night, Darius saw uncertainty replace arrogance on the officer's face. The silence stretched for a moment as Renee looked around, at the people watching, at the flashing lights, at her son still standing frozen beside the SUV. Then she said quietly, "You just humiliated a teenager in public for doing absolutely nothing wrong. You realize that, right?" Hensley looked away, the power he once held slipping fast. But Renee wasn't finished, because this wasn't just about her son. It was about every kid who never got to have a parent arrive in time. For a long moment, no one said anything. The gas station lights buzzed overhead, insects circling like they were drawn to the heat of what was happening below. Deputy Wade Hensley stood stiff, the words FBI still sinking in. He hadn't expected this. Not here, not tonight. Renee stepped closer, closing the gap between them until her calm became unavoidable. "You said my son was acting nervous. Tell me, officer, how exactly should a 17-year-old act when he's surrounded by flashing lights and accused of stealing his own mother's car?" Hensley straightened. "Ma'am, I was following protocol." "What protocol?" she asked sharply. "The one where you profile a teenager because of what he looks like? Or the one where you use intimidation instead of reason?" "Now hold on," Hensley began, his tone defensive. "I didn't profile anyone." The system flagged the vehicle, and I had a responsibility to investigate. Renee tilted her head slightly. "Did you verify that flag before approaching him?" He hesitated. "It came through as a past report." "So no," she said flatly. "You didn't verify it." You assumed Darius watched silently, his mother's voice both comforting and terrifying. He'd never seen her like this, controlled, sharp, every word cutting deeper than shouting ever could. Renee took out her phone, dialing. "This is Special Agent Colton, requesting immediate confirmation of plate number GYZ84L through the federal database." She paused, listening. "Yes, I'll hold." The deputy fidgeted, glancing at the small crowd gathering near the pumps. The line clicked. Renee nodded. "Confirmed. Vehicle is registered, clear, and active. No alerts." She ended the call and turned back to Hensley. "So, again, what exactly was suspicious here?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Because from where I'm standing," she continued, "the only thing that stood out to you was that my son doesn't fit your idea of who belongs behind the wheel of this car." The deputy's eyes narrowed. "Now that's not fair." "Fair?" Renee repeated, voice firm but level. "You think fairness is what this looks like? You had your hand on your gun, officer. On your gun. For a teenager with a Gatorade and a gym bag." Someone in the small crowd murmured, "She's right." Renee stepped closer again, lowering her voice. "You don't get to do that to kids like him anymore." Not without answering for it, Hensley's breathing quickened. "Ma'am, I didn't—" "Yes, you did," she interrupted, steady as ever, "and the camera on your chest saw every second of it." For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of passing cars on the highway. Renee looked at her son. "Darius, are you okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, just, tired. Go sit in the car." He did, shoulders slumped with relief. When Renee turned back, Hensley was already trying to compose himself. "Look, Agent Colton, I'll admit things might have gone a little rough, but you know how this job is. We're told to stay alert. Things happen fast. Things only happen fast," she said quietly, "when fear replaces judgment." He swallowed hard. Renee glanced at his body cam. "I expect a copy of that footage. I'll file a formal complaint in the morning, and I'll make sure it goes through internal affairs. You can explain your alertness to them." The clerk from the store stepped outside again, his voice uncertain. "Ma'am, I'm really sorry your boy had to go through that. I saw the whole thing." She nodded at him. "Thank you for saying that." Turning back to Hensley, she added, "You know, my son asked me once what the difference was between being safe and being free. I didn't know how to answer him then." Her voice softened, almost breaking. "But now I do. Safe means knowing someone like you can't treat him like a suspect for existing." The deputy's shoulders slumped. The power he carried so confidently an hour ago now looked heavy, like it didn't belong to him anymore. But Renee wasn't done teaching, because accountability doesn't end with apology. It begins with it. The sound of distant sirens drifted in, growing louder by the second. Hensley's radio crackled again, and he stepped back from Renee, his voice low. "Backup's coming," he muttered. Renee didn't flinch. "Good," she said. "Maybe they'll understand procedure better than you do." The second patrol car pulled up beside the first, lights flashing across the gas station sign. Two younger deputies stepped out, hands hovering near their belts as they took in the scene. An officer, a woman in a dark suit, and a quiet teenager sitting inside an SUV with tears in his eyes. One of them, Deputy Lopez, looked at Hensley and frowned. "Everything okay here?" Hensley cleared his throat. "Just a misunderstanding. Car came back flagged, but it's all sorted now." Renee turned toward Lopez. "That's not true. Your colleague conducted an unlawful stop, searched my vehicle without cause, and threatened my son. I'm Agent Renee Colton, FBI. I'll be filing a full report." Lopez blinked, taken aback. "Understood, ma'am." He turned to Hensley. "You got documentation of that stop?" Hensley hesitated. "Body cam's running." "Good," Renee said. "Then make sure that footage doesn't disappear." The crowd that had gathered near the pumps was growing, customers pretending to check their gas but clearly watching. The woman who'd been recording earlier was still holding her phone steady. Renee walked toward her. "You got all of it?" "Yes, ma'am. From when he first turned the lights on, thank you," Renee said quietly. "Keep it. You might need it if someone tries to rewrite the story later." The woman nodded, eyes full of respect. "Your boy handled himself real well." Renee turned back toward the deputies. "We're done here," she said. "My son's leaving. If you have questions, you can contact the Bureau directly." Lopez gave a small nod. "Understood, Agent." But Hensley's face was red now, frustration mixing with embarrassment. "You think you can walk in here and talk down to me because of a title?" Renee met his gaze evenly. "No, because of the truth." For a moment, it felt like time froze again. The kind of stillness that comes when someone finally runs out of excuses. Darius stepped out of the SUV, eyes glassy but steady. "Mom, can we go?" She smiled softly. "Yeah, baby. We can go." As they got into the car, the crowd began to disperse. The clerk gave a small wave. The woman with the phone lowered her camera. Even the air felt different, lighter somehow. Renee started the engine, her hands tight on the wheel. Darius stared out the window, watching the flashing lights fade in the rearview mirror. "Mom," he said quietly, "what's going to happen to him?" Renee took a breath. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. But people saw. That matters. He nodded slowly. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," she said. "And that's exactly why we can't stay quiet about it." The car rolled onto the highway, headlights cutting through the dark. But what neither of them knew was that the video from that gas station would soon be shared, viewed, and talked about far beyond Macon, sparking a conversation that had been waiting far too long to start. The drive home was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace but from everything left unsaid. Streetlights flicked by in even intervals, glowing across Darius's face as he stared out the window. He finally broke the silence. "Mom, you think he's sorry?" Renee kept her eyes on the road. "Maybe. But sorry isn't the point, Darius. Change is." He leaned back, frowning. "Feels like it's never going to change." Renee glanced at him, her expression softening. "I know it feels that way. But every time we speak up, every time we stand our ground, we push it a little further. You did everything right tonight." "I didn't feel brave," he admitted. "Bravery isn't about feeling strong," she said quietly. "It's about staying calm when everything in you wants to run. And you did that." They turned onto their street, a small row of quiet houses with porch lights glowing. Renee parked, put the car in park, and rested her hand on the steering wheel. "Baby, I've seen the worst parts of this country," she said. "I've seen people hurt others just because they can. But I've also seen good officers, good neighbors, and people who refuse to stay blind. That's where hope lives, in the ones who refuse to look away." Darius looked down at his hands. "People at the gas station, they just watched." "Some did," she said, "but someone recorded. Someone spoke up. That's something." He nodded slowly. "Do you think they'll actually do anything with it?" "They might," she said. "And if they don't, We will. For the first time that night, Darius smiled faintly. Renee turned off the ignition and looked at her son. You know what I want you to remember most about tonight? He shook his head, that no matter what anyone says or does, your worth doesn't depend on how they see you. You don't need a badge to prove your value. The porch light flickered on automatically as they stepped out of the car. The world around them was calm again, but it didn't feel the same. That night, the footage from the gas station began spreading online. It was shaky, grainy, and imperfect, but real. People commented, shared, debated. Some were angry. Others finally understood. And somewhere inside that noise, a message began to take root. Accountability isn't about power. It's about respect. The next morning, Renee sat at the kitchen table watching her son eat cereal, still quiet but safe. She looked at him, smiled faintly, and said, You know, Darius, sometimes change doesn't start with a crowd. Sometimes it starts with one moment of truth. He nodded, finishing his spoonful. We had ours, huh? Yeah, she said softly. We did. Because real strength isn't measured by authority. It's measured by how you use it. And if you ever see something wrong, don't just turn away. Speak up, stand up. Because silence never protected anyone.